It's 897 AD, and the Catholic Church is about to do something that, even by medieval standards, is completely unhinged. They're going to put a dead guy on trial. Not dead like, man, this guy's going to be toast after this. Dead like, in the ground, 9 months in the grave. They're going to dig him up, toss him on a throne in his Sunday best, and charge him with crimes. This is the story of the Cadaver Synod. Now, I'm not a historian, but I like stumbling across these curious little tidbits in history, and I'm going to share them with you, whether you like it or not. I'm Joe, and this is Curiostory. Okay, we need a little backstory here. You got to understand that Rome in the late 800s was basically like a medieval soap opera with worse plumbing. Forget the togas and senators Rome. This was later shitshow Rome, like after the fall. This Rome's leadership was like the ultimate game of hot potato with shivs. Noble families, kings, warlords, they were all jockeying for control of the Pope's throne. Not because they were some kind of holy, but because whoever controlled the Pope controlled everything. However, being the Pope in this era wasn't exactly a retirement plan. It was usually more like being a mob boss that's always looking over his shoulder because he might get capped at any moment. You don't really step down from being the Pope. You generally got kicked out, imprisoned, or worse. It was all over the board. So enter our first guy, Pope Formosus. We're going to call him Formy because I like it, and if I don't, I'll probably mess it up this whole time. Just, spare me the flack. It's a stupid video. Now, Formy played the allegiance game like everyone else did. He made some powerful friends, and he made some powerful enemies. In particular, the Spoleto family. They were super pissed at Formy because he anointed a different guy for emperor than they wanted. And eventually, as far as we know, had nothing to do with that. In 896, an exception to the norm, Formy peacefully passed away in his sleep, a boring, historically unremarkable death. You'd think that's the end of this guy's story, right? Guy dies, you get a new pope, the world goes on. Nope. What happened later turned out to be very remarkable. We do get a new pope. We get Pope Stephen VI, and we're going to call him Steve. And Steve got his job specifically because of the people Formy ticked off, the Spoletos. Anyways, they pulled the strings to get Steve his new gig, and they wanted Monkey to dance. And Steve had a problem. To keep his powerful new buddies happy, he needs to very publicly destroy Formy's legacy. Not just make some statement like, hey, that guy was a real downer, man. He needs to legally and spiritually erase this guy from the books forever. Small snag, though. Remember, Formy's dead, and generally speaking, it's hard to publicly shame a dead guy in person. So Steve brainstorms on it for a while, and he's going to go big. He's going to have his hold my beer moment. And what happens next is genuinely one of the strangest things in history. Somebody definitely should have stopped this at several points, but nobody did. But I mean, you going to say no to the Pope? Not at this time in Rome, and neither did they. Steve orders them to dig up Formy. So they dig him up, and they dress up the not-so-camera-ready Pope in full Pope gear, robes, funny hat, the whole ceremonial fit. They got him looking like he's about to hold Easter Mass instead of, peacefully laying in his coffin. They set him up on a throne in front of a packed basilica and have a full tribunal, audience, and everything. Because why not stop there? He can't exactly represent himself, so the corpse definitely needs a lawyer. Some poor deacon who probably drew the short straw, presumably the most unlucky guy in Rome that week, gets assigned to stand next to his new wonderful smelling best friend and answer questions as Formy, speaking for him, defending him, putting on the whole act. Meanwhile, Formy's, for obvious reasons, he's not defending himself. So now Steve gets up there and puts on a show. He personally runs the whole prosecution. He is screaming and pointing his finger at the corpse, perjury, violating church laws, being unfit for the papacy in the first place. And guess what the verdict was? And the punishment? Pretty messed up, even by the standards of the era, which sometimes were stuff like, we'll do trial by combat. They rip all the robes off of him. They hack off his 3 fingers that Formy would use to give blessings. And then they haul the now mutilated body down and chuck him in the Tiber River. No grave, no ceremony, just straight into the river. Unceremoniously. Now, as far as Steve is concerned, case closed. His buddies are happy, Formy's tried and convicted, and that's how history will remember it. Right? Well, he was wrong. He was dead wrong. Because here's the thing Steve didn't see coming. Most Romans did not think that let's put a rotting corpse on trial was a good look. Turns out, when you watch your church mutilate a dead man and toss him in the river like garbage, it doesn't really read like justice. It reads more like WTF. People were rightly horrified. Whatever faith they had in their leadership went right in that river with the old pope. And because this story isn't dramatic enough already, legend has it, Formy's body washed up downstream or was fished out and found by a monk, and then supposedly started performing some miracles. Look, whether it was real or not, it doesn't matter because the rumor stuck and it spread like a meme. And none of that was doing old Steve any favors. The public mood soured fast, like within months, which doesn't sound fast, but that's pretty fast in pre-social media times. Romans straight up rebelled. Steve gets overthrown, stripped of his title, and tossed in jail. And he does not get a warm welcome there. Stephen VI was strangled to death in his prison cell. He was killed by the exact same political chaos that he thought he could overcome by putting a dead man on trial. Just backfired. And as for Formosus, well, down the road, future popes took another look at the case. They formally declared him innocent. They retrieved what was left of his body that the monk had graciously buried, and they gave him an honorable burial in St. Peter's Basilica. So, just to recap the full journey: died, dug up, tried, mutilated, dumped in a river, and then buried in the most sacred place in all of Catholicism. This story, man, the first time you hear it, you're like, oh my god, that actually happened? And it did. It was a perfect chaotic cocktail of paranoia, politics, and messed up decisions that ends with the most powerful guy in Rome strangled in a jail cell, and the dead guy that he tried to tarnish coming out on top. Stephen VI tried to erase a legacy, and instead he ended up torching his own and accidentally turned Formosus into an absolute legend. Don't be that guy. And if you made it this far, you might as well hit that like button. And if you want to hear more effed up stuff your history teacher just didn't have time to get to, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'm no historian, and I'm going to get some of this stuff wrong, but you're going to get the gist of what happened. And these stories are just too good not to talk about. I'm Joe, and this is Curiostory. Thanks for watching.